Why do indigenous peoples love their ancestral homelands so fiercely, and why are they willing to defend the water, the forest, as if it was a relative or a family member? Because from the indigenous perspective, the land is a relative. Stay with me because I'm going to break it all down and show you how it works. Hey everyone, this is Dr. B. Welcome back to Dr. B Teaches. It's November, which means it's Native American Heritage Month, and that is a perfect time to launch my Indigenous Studies Masterclass. These will be short courses where we uncover the truth and resilience of Indigenous America, past, present, and beyond. This series is built for my students, educators, homeschoolers, and lifelong learners who want a clear and accessible understanding of Indigenous history and culture. I have a lot of great content that I'm working on, and we'll be exploring topics and issues related to Native American mascots, the land back movement, Indigenous language revitalization programs, to explaining settler colonialism and histories like the boarding school system, and all the amazing contributions by Indigenous peoples. Today we're going to start with why the land is so important to Indigenous lifeways. Let me begin by saying Indigenous cultures are incredibly diverse, many nations, many languages, many ceremonies, and many lifeways. Despite the stereotypes, Indigenous peoples are not a monolith. There is no one single Native American culture. So what I'll be talking about are some commonalities shared among all Indigenous nations. Why do Indigenous lifeways teach their community members to be good caretakers of the land? It's because the land is seen as a living organism that we are all related to and interconnected with. The land is kin, it's a relative. You listen, you ask, and you give back. And the relationships that Indigenous peoples developed with their homeland spans thousands of years, and it's all based on maintaining healthy, reciprocal relationships with other life forms. And this allowed Indigenous peoples not only the ability to survive, but to thrive and to develop diverse, vibrant cultures. This is how the salmon runs kept running, how the deer herds were able to recover from hunting, how the oak woodlands fed everyone for centuries. And this Indigenous knowledge was acquired and tested over generations. Indigenous people developed an intimate understanding of their homelands because they lived there for thousands of years. They understood every plant, every animal, every species that lived in and around their area. Terms like Indigenous traditional knowledge are often used interchangeably with traditional ecological knowledge, which is a holistic and dynamic body of knowledge practices and beliefs that have been developed and passed down through generations within Indigenous communities. This knowledge is deeply rooted in the long-standing relationship between Indigenous peoples and their ancestral lands and resources. Let me give you some clear examples. Indigenous communities from the East Coast to the West Coast practiced cultural burns, which kept wildfire risk low and enhanced the biodiversity, had sustainable fishing practices, and sustainable agricultural systems that literally fed millions and millions of people. And Indigenous peoples didn't just live lightly on the land. They interacted with their ecosystems in ways that enhanced and developed the biodiversity. Centuries of acquiring traditional ecological knowledge produced a wide array of traditional foods, medicines, and life. Cultural burns created a patchwork of habitats that boost acorns, bulbs, berries, and the animals that Indigenous communities depend on for survival. Clam gardens developed by the tribes of the Pacific Northwest protected beaches and increased shellfish abundance and species diversity. The Three Sisters agricultural systems developed by many tribes, including the Haudenosaunee nations, mixed corn, beans, and squash to build the soil, hold moisture, and support pollinators. This agricultural system was brilliant. It did not require any type of synthetic fertilizers. The Menominee forest stewardship kept timber productive while maintaining biodiversity. The prairies and the meadows cared for by the Lakota, the Blackfoot, and the Cheyenne kept the grasslands vigorous and the bison strong. At one time, there were over 60 million bison feeding the tribal communities along the Great Plains. Indigenous traditional ecological knowledge is ecosystem engineering that builds biodiversity, not destroy it. And these relationships that indigenous peoples had to their homelands is one of the greatest contributions to humanity in all of life. And they always connected their knowledge systems to their spiritual worldviews. Ceremonies, songs, and prayers tie people to the land, to their ancestors, and other life forms. The land, again, is viewed as a living organism. You're a relative to that, not the boss. In your spiritual worldview, ceremonies, songs, and prayers are all about maintaining this healthy reciprocal relationship with your homelands and the universe as a whole. And if you break this relationship, you lose the language, you lose the memory, you also lose the balance. Overuse of the land or the exploitation of resources might mean that you go hungry the next season. This is why many indigenous nations made their decisions based on the 7 generations coming, making good choices for their people who they would never meet. Now, that's great leadership. And one of the beauty of indigenous worldviews and lifeways is there's no command to conquer the world. The goal was always to protect life, not to destroy or conquer it. Life was very simple. You care for your homelands, you protect the biodiversity, take care of the water, and of course, teach your children to live a good life. Indigenous communities also developed protocols on how and when to harvest. Ceremonies you would practice before you would go hunting and after the hunting was completed. Teachings that say, leave the first salmon to pass. And these teachings are always reinforcing reciprocity and balance. But let me ground this even further. In California, Karuk and Yurok cultural burns opened oak groves, bring back bulbs, berries, and protect homes. In the Southwest, the Hopi, Zuni, and the Tohono used dry farming, waffle gardens, and canal systems tuned to wind, shade, and ecological timing. Along the Klamath and Columbia rivers, the Nez Perce, Umatilla, and Warm Springs communities managed fisheries to sustain salmon runs. In the Pacific Northwest, the Tulalip and Muckleshoot communities worked to restore salmon habitats while at the same time feeding their communities. And these are all sustainable food systems. This is all pretty amazing, isn't it? And I think the land back movement ties into this nicely. But what exactly is land back? Land back means returning decision-making powers over lands and waters back to indigenous nations. This can be done through the full return of lands that were illegally taken, co-management, or the protection of sacred sites. And it has nothing to do with kicking people off the land. It's about honoring treaties and proven indigenous land stewardship that equates to healthier ecosystems and protection of the biodiversity. We'll come back to the land back movement in another episode. So when you hear indigenous peoples talk about protecting their sacred homelands, you now understand it's all about protecting a relationship that has been developed over thousands of years. Indigenous worldviews and lifeways are not some new age trend. It's about cultural identity. It's about ceremony, science, and love all braided together. We're talking about many indigenous nations, many traditional ways, but one truth that binds them all together. Treat the land like a relative, and the land will always sustain you. This is why indigenous lifeways have always protected the earth and all its amazing life forms. All right, that concludes the first episode of my Indigenous Studies Masterclass. Don't forget to hit the follow button and leave a comment and let me know if there's a topic you would like me to cover. Until next time.